This is the Elevate Media Podcast, created for high achievers on a mission to continuously elevate their life and business. Now here's your host, Chris Anderson.
Welcome back to another recording of the Elevate Media Podcast. I'm Chris Anderson, your host. Today we're going to be helping you get more done without feeling so overwhelmed and stuck, because we can kind of run down that rabbit hole of thinking we have to add so much to our plate to be successful, to grow our business, when in reality, we're really just not focusing on the right things and we're doing too much. So brought on someone who's an expert in this field. This is what she helps other businesses with, other entrepreneurs, and she's got a lot of experience into it. So Chanda Coston, welcome to the Elevate Media Podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. I'm excited to be here. It's going to be an amazing conversation.
Absolutely. We're going to just go ahead and dive right into it with this question to get things rolling. Why are so many successful entrepreneurs exhausted, overbooked, and still stuck, even though they're quote unquote doing all the right things?
Simple as this, and this is what I tell my clients: running in place is not the same as making progress, right? And so we pile our day on with all of the things, but they're not the right things. And so it's really taking the time to get clear on what that looks like for you and making progress in your business, eliminating that 80% of noise that actually makes us think we're hustling, we're moving, we're shaking, but we're not making progress. And it's like, what am I doing wrong? You got to come up with the important stuff, that 20% that moves us forward for sure.
Yeah, and a lot of times that's the boring stuff. And so we want to feel like we have the exciting, fun stuff happening, and it's not necessarily moving the needle forward with that. So I think that's a good point to make. And obviously you have the experience, you were in the Navy for 20 plus years, your CEO, Chanda Co, which is business strategy, and you're the founder and VP of the HEB Foundation, right? And so you have the experience of building things and having leadership and running teams to get things done. Where can we shift? When can we get less busy and actually have strategy moving us forward?
For my clients that come to me and say, I'm overwhelmed, I don't have enough time, I don't know where to start, I immediately tell them to do a calendar audit and see where are you wasting your time, because a lot of times we are inundated by notifications. We got our emails, we got social media, we got YouTube, we got work, we got a personal email. It's just like everything at once, right? And if you're anything like me, mom of 5, grandmother of 4, 2 aging parents, business, I got my Frenchie over here, I have a little dog. Like I have stuff going on. I love to travel. And it's like, I've got to figure out what makes the most sense for me. What does success looks like? What is revenue generating activity, and how do I tackle that, right? And so it's like, I don't need more information. I need to get clear, right? That comes through auditing, right? Because then now it's in front of you. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And then the next thing is making those strategic decisions to do the one thing. So if you can't do 3 things a day, right? Because when you're starting out in business, a lot of times you're working another job. You still got all these competing priorities. It's like, what is the one thing I can do today to move my business forward? What's the one thing that's going to make the most impact on my bottom line? And it's realizing that every single day, so that then you can become more impactful in your business. You can make more progress in your business. You can get out of hustle mode, and you can find balance to breathe again, for sure.
Yeah. So how do we find that one thing? Like, because obviously there is so much, and a testament to having kids, grandkids, dog. So you're busy too, right? You have a lot going on, but you can still move the needle forward in business and in your companies. So how do we do that? Because a lot of people are busy. They might have a 9-to-5 still while they're trying to build their business right now. They have families, other obligations. How do we narrow it down to what the most important things are to move that needle forward, to focus on each day?
It really is. When most people say, I have a to-do list, I work from a to-do list. And okay, well, what's on your to-do list? Okay. If it is do the laundry, drop off dry cleaning, and go food shopping, those are things that you must get done because you have to live. But those are not revenue generating activities in your business. And that is a huge distinction in that, right? And so I'm not saying the content is not important. I'm saying you may need to answer the email because there may be a client in there. But you definitely want to do the stuff where you're following up on leads, you're doing lead generating activity, things that will actually turn into some type of income in your business, and knowing the distinction between those and being able to prioritize those. So if you have to exclude something in your day, You may say, I can drop off the dry cleaning tomorrow because I need to follow with this client today because I wanted to, lock in this sale. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think prioritizing the actions that you have, like what has to be done. So
Exactly.
those things that are going to move the needle, bring business in, or get you closer to that next sale
Yeah.
versus like these would be nice to have done today versus
Mhm.
these wait because they might seem nice, but they don't really move the needle forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm really big on time blocking and task batching, right? I'm
Mm,
really big on focused periods of time. So if you're working a 9 to 5, and kudos to everyone who's out there doing that and then dealing with their family and they're still making time for their business. But if you only have an hour a day to dedicate to your business, you want to make sure that it's spent the most strategically as possible. And so you may spend 10 minutes checking email, flagging the ones that are important that you need to follow up with, but then you want to make sure you're dedicating the rest of that time to actually doing the things that are necessary that day so that you're doing everything in your power to have success in your business. And excluding all of the distractions that may come with that. So that means no notifications. If I'm working on big projects, I'm sending out text messages to my family saying, hey, I'm shutting the phone down on D&D because I'm focused
yeah.
during this hour, right? It's like being very intentional because you've made the goal that you want to start this business and you want to be successful, right? Whatever success looks like for you, you want to be successful. And so you have got to make your goal non-negotiable. So if you say you're going to do an hour a day, do an hour a day because you deserve it for sure.
That's awesome. And it's like, we've heard, you've got to assign your time a job. You've got to assign your money a job. We've heard that because if not, it's just going to go. It's going to go to something,
It is.
and that's why I love, you said your calendar audit, your time audit. We've heard it called
Mhm.
figuring out where you're actually spending your time because you probably be
Mhm.
shocked how much you might actually have that is wasted, right?
For
Is
sure.
doom scrolling, is not doing things productively for your family, for your home, or for your business. And
Mhm.
so I think those are important things to think about. And what are things you see when you come into a business and you see it that you're like, oh man, okay, these are warning signs that they're not really operating with a strategy. They're just kind of
Mhm.
being busy.
One little cute term I tell people all the time is automate, delegate, eliminate. And
Yep.
so, one of the certs I have is in Lean Six Sigma Black Belt. And to put that really plainly, it is observing and to streamline processes. And so, if a business is, a lot of people start a business as a hobby and
Mhm.
then they're not necessarily taking it serious, but then it gains some traction. And next thing you know, they're overwhelmed because they're lacking the operational piece, which is that structure. And it's like, okay, I'm overwhelmed with all of this. It's good because the business is growing, but I have all this stuff to do. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Where are your workflows? Where are your roles, responsibilities? Where are your processes? Like if you had to bring a team in today without you training everybody, there should be standard operating procedures where you could say, this is what I did under this role. Because as a solopreneur, initially we do it all,
Yeah.
right? And so when you think about it from that standpoint, is there work up front for that? It is, but there are also automations and apps for that, right? That you can put in place to say, I'm starting to do this task, and it'll actually kind of help you dictate to yourself the thing that you're doing. So it'll give you a snapshot of that process so then you can build upon it as you go and as you grow,
Yeah.
right? And so for sure, automating as much as you can in this day of AI and robotics, delegating it to a person or a system when you have the time capacity, the resources, and the finances, and then eliminating any bottlenecks, any stop gaps, things that you see. If you're doing something more than twice in your business, like it may be a redundant task. Can I pass that off to a system or can I pass that off to a person? Or is it just something that is holding up the process and I can recoup some time and eliminate it altogether? Like, is it even necessary? Right.
Yeah.
But is knowing yourself and your business enough to say that makes sense for me, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a critical thing. Even if it's just you, like you can still have a system, and it can be super simple.
Mm-hmm.
So system could be, every morning at this time I go to emails, I do that for 10 minutes, I respond, and like just keeping it simple. And instead of chasing all the socially acceptable like shiny objects first, scrolling first when you wake up, like having the system and process for your even your morning routine. Um, but why is busy just becoming, I feel like, socially acceptable, like a way to avoid things, right? A way to avoid what really is done. We just see, oh yeah, I'm just, I need to do this trend, or I need to add this piece to my content strategy or whatever. Why do we see that so often?
I think that's really around the mindset. And I think coming out of the information age where there was just all of a sudden we had access to so much information, people decided to kind of sit in it and it became a means to procrastinate. And it's like, we don't need more information right now. We need execution. And a lot of times we learn that clarity comes through movement, right? Clarity comes through execution. And that is the issue. Is like, let's create a clear decision path and decide on the one thing. And we're going to commit to that for the next 90 days. What are we trying to accomplish? We're going to move forward in that way, because then you have data to even know if the thing that you're doing is value added or not. If nothing else, you can pivot and change it. But at least you'll know because you're doing something. But I really do think it is from the mindset and the generations. And I'm not throwing shade as an older person, right? Because I'm from like the old school where it had to work or it had to work, right?
Right.
Get in there, get your your knees and your elbows dirty and get it done.
Yeah.
By any means necessary. But as a mom with older children, my oldest is about to be 32.
Wow.
I'm like, girl, just do it already. Like, what are we talking about? And I love her.
Right.
She's in the Navy, but it's just a different generation where they want to talk about it for a long time. And I'm not a talker. I'm an executor for sure.
Yeah.
And so it's having that mindset shift.
It's so interesting because I just read an article the other day of like the younger generations, and I'm a millennial. I'm just a little bit older than your daughter, which I would have never guessed you had that many kids or even grandkids. So kudos to you, whatever you're doing is working. So that's awesome, because that's a lot of stress. One, I have 3 little ones, so I get it. But it, like, millennial, and then the younger generation, they want to talk, like, have their emotion and share it, and kind of think like they have their idea and they want to share it. And like in mine, what it was saying was, we have that emotion or that thought, and we want to like kind of think on it. And then my brother, his generation, they're more kind of like just get it done kind of thing. And I feel like I'm in between millennial and the generation before me. And so I find myself sometimes, especially now, like, I don't know, walking that line, that tightrope of like both. Like, it's good to kind of talk about it a little bit, but also still need to get action done. And a lot of people, I feel like, especially with AI going on, they're trying to kind of almost reinvent themselves, their businesses with all this new stuff. So how do we navigate that with there's so much, you talk about, you got to innovate, you got to innovate, you got to shift. How do people do that right now, whether it be age wise or just with AI?
So I think with AI, the thing is, it is not supposed to replace your thoughts. And I think for a lot of people, everything is starting to look and sound the same, is because they want it to make them better, but it can't replace you, right? Because it doesn't have the human factor. And I think a large part of what we're also seeing is that people are now beginning to yearn for that human authenticity that you can't get from regurgitated content or conversations that are ginned up by AI. And so it's going back to AI being a tool, right, to speed up processes, to leverage as a resource, because it does have so much data there that you can do a lot with a little bit of time, where we couldn't do that before. But it should not be replacing you as the thought leader in your business. It should not be replacing you from an idea perspective. It should be something that you use maybe to play with an idea, to ask questions about an idea, to round things out, right? Manipulate it a little bit. But ultimately, as the business owner and the CEO, your job is to think and to innovate. And if you take that factor out of it, I think you lose a huge part of what makes you dynamic. The reason we can show up in these spaces really is because I am the only Chanda, right? Okay. And so it's like, you might hear someone with a similar name, but at the end of the day, they don't have my DNA. They don't have my journey, my lived experience. Like, I have been harping so much lately on human capital. I really think that it's something that should be taught, right? Because it's the thing that makes us us. So outside of all of my accolades and my schooling and my years of experience in corporate, there's also a lived experience in the essence of who I am that's value added to the people that come behind me, right? And we shouldn't lose that in AI and robots, because that's the one thing they can't replicate.
Yeah, and that's why even, with our clients I talk to is, AI can be a tool to help create more content, create more marketing pieces, but we're going to get there's going to be so much of that coming out, and there already is, that the ones who can lean into the human content, whether that be live stream, whether that be just showing up on camera as yourself, telling the story, those are the ones that are going to win, because they're going to have that human connection piece. That the trust is going to be there versus AI, a bunch of AI content, which has its place, but again, it's just a tool, because people want to buy from people still, I think, at the end of the day, even with robots and technology. So we have to have that piece still with it. So how do people do that? How do people get the clarity? Maybe they're trying to figure out how to grow their business, what direction to take. Now they have AI who they can get a bunch of ideas from. How can they cut through all that to have the clarity on what we need to do moving forward to grow?
Ooh, I think that's a little question, only because everybody's business journey is unique. And for me personally, this is where I think having a good mentor, accountability partner, support system, coach, right? Not to plug myself as a coach, right, or a strategist, but I think the beauty of humanity is that we lean into each other. There's an ebb and flow that takes place and a transference of knowledge. And so I say, if you can't afford to be in a paid community, then go to a free community, and there's lots of them on Facebook, right? And so it's getting into a common space with people who believe like you, who are aligned to you, who can support you in your journey, and that you can naturally glean and learn from. And coming out of the information age where there's a plethora of information, it can be very overwhelming and confusing, because you really don't know what to follow. And I think that's where those human connections again come into play. And so if you're into real estate, right, get into a real estate group, or people are talking about brokering real estate deals, and listen and lean in, but also try to be value added, try to make those connections, because I think it's very key about the people you surround yourself with, for sure. Those influences and those voices, and having that, for sure.
I think that's such a great point, is, you are who you surround yourself with. And if you're the smartest one in the room, right, you're in the wrong room. We've heard that. So we gotta shift and adapt, and don't think you know it all, because if that's the case, then you're in trouble,
for sure.
But with that too, like, because there is so much information, like we kind of mentioned it in burnout, right? We've heard of that, we've heard that over and over. Do you think that burnout comes from capacity problems or motivation problems?
I never think it's a motivation. No, I never think it's a motivation problem. I think most people are capable, but I think a lot of times they are at capacity and they don't know how to recoup that capacity. But that comes from structure and strategy, right? And so I'm a systems girl. Nobody thinks systems and structure is sexy, but let me tell you, okay, it is, because it gives you the ability to have the freedom and to not be burnt out, and to make better choices for you and your family. And so my ideal client is a woman who is typically around 40, who's ready to transition into something purposeful but lucrative, and they're ready to start a passion project or a passion business. And it's like, okay, well, how do I do that with all of these other things, right? I want to do something for me. And it's like, well, let's talk about what that looks like for you. Right. And so getting out of burnout, getting out of hustle mode to do that, meaning giving yourself permission to restructure your life so that it can serve you, so that it becomes wrapped around your life and your life is not wrapped around it. And I think the mistake a lot of people make is they come up with a great idea, right? But when I give my clients, who often want to do 20 things, women, okay, I just want you to keep that in mind, women typically have 20 ideas they want to do. And it's like, no, let's grade these, right? And so the quick questionnaire that I give them is simply 5 questions. And the number 5th one is so key here. But it's 1, are you passionate about it? 2, are you good at it? 3, what problem does it solve? Because you have to know that, right? 4, will people pay for it? But number 5, does it fit the season that you're in? Does it fit your season? Because if it doesn't fit your season, you're going to be burnt out. You're going to be frustrated, right? You're going to be over it. And you're going to be like, I no longer love doing this thing that I started off doing, because it's like, I can't, it's driving me. I don't have to, then you become, because you're overwhelmed, you're over your capacity, right? And so I think that is so key. And so being self-aware is a part of that. Having the tools that you need is a part of that. Having people that you'll listen to have these conversations with, that'll be honest with you, that you trust, because I think trust is huge there. But for sure, it's like people are burnt out because they're burning the candle at too many ends, without enough strategy, without enough structure.
Yep.
And yeah, no one goes into business to put themselves in a box in a cage.
Exactly. So with
Yeah.
you, you've had the experience, you've done a lot. What is a point in your life or in your story, your journey, that you've reached capacity, or you were at that moment of like,
Oh my God.
or which time? No. So
Right.
how
Like,
did
which
you overcome
one?
that? Obviously, what did you
Oh,
what made you realize, hey, I've got to figure this out, or it's not going to last?
in full transparency, the very first time I had a major pivot, I was in survival mode. I didn't come out of survival mode for a long time.
Yeah.
And so every major pivot I did after that was about surviving and making things work for me and my children, right?
Yeah.
And when I finally got to a point where I was going into entrepreneurship as a consultant for the government, right? It was my own company under my own brand. I lost my brother to gun violence he was 27, and that's what shook me to my core.
Yeah.
That made me think like, I just started my consulting company, and I was like, I'm gonna go off and make millions because the government has lots of money. And a few weeks later, I lost him, and because I wasn't who expects it, it was like so unexpected. It was so like it was like an earthquake, if I could describe it, right? And I said, if I was to die today, would I be happy with what I did with my life? And so I started to doing the work, right? Self-awareness, looking at all the pieces, my journey, what I wanted to leave behind for my legacy. And I said, something has to change.
Yep.
Right? Because I was burning the candle at both ends. I'm like, think about the dates. I was working full time with 5 children with all their activities, and I was in school getting my master's, and like, yeah, so, and I had all the responsibilities of a home and getting everybody where they need. So when I was there, like, what are you talking? I was her. I was the poster girl. What are you talking about? Um, and it took something so mind blowing and crazy and disheartening to kind of jolt me and say, hey, what are we doing here? Like, what are we doing? And in doing the work there, I started to say, okay, well, these things have to change, to come out of being reactive to being proactive, to come out of being imbalanced and slightly manic because I was burning the candle, not getting enough sleep, trying to, be perfect on all these different ways, right? I'm a type A. So it was like, okay, I got to go to work and be perfect. I got to go to school and be perfect. I got to be the perfect mom. I have to have a perfect home. All of this, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, you don't prepare for something like that to hit your family. And it just it caused everything to shift, not just in the physical, but also in my mind and my heart. And so that started my journey for sure. And it brought me to a place where I had to say, like, this is success, right? I got the house, I got the title, I got the car, I got the degrees, I got these things, but now it doesn't feel fulfilling. So wait a minute, there's something missing. And how do we fix that? How do we course correct? But it started with a conversation within myself for sure.
I think that's a great, and thank you for sharing and being open to share that story. That is unimaginable what that would be like to go through, and to be able to rise from that and have positive change from that in your life. And I think, it's like something I heard the other day, because so many times, at least I've said it, people are like, hey, how's it going? How's everything going? Hey, another day, right? Well, we got another day. But I heard it the other day, one day less. Like, hey, we got one day less. And it's like, it's true, because you don't know when our time's over, and you're one day less, or you're one day closer to the end. And it was a morbid thing to think about, but it was a kind of a realization of like, yeah, you're right. Our days are getting less and less. Yes, thankful for another day, but what are we doing today? Because you're one day closer to the end. And I think a person's perspective, and a mentor of mine, my brother, actually talks about that, of like, you don't have to build the world's largest company, right? You need to what works for you and what you're wanting and for your family, and that nature. And so almost, taking the end goal and breaking it down to, okay, so what do we have to do today to get to that kind of goal? How do you see leaders doing that well today? Maybe leaders that you see they have the structure, the system. What are they doing? Is it just having the systems, having the boundaries to make them building that successful, quote unquote, life?
Yeah, boundaries are so key in a lot of this, right? And so I would have to agree with you there. Those that do it well, they have boundaries, strong boundaries, but they also, and part of that boundary is self-care, right?
Yeah.
And so, and then being clear on the reason that they're chasing this big shiny thing anyway. Like, what's your why?
Yeah.
Because it's easy in the midst of what the world calls success to kind of get pulled away from that and to get off track if you're not clear on why you're doing it in the first place. And so I think that burnout piece also comes from misalignment, right? And
Mm-hmm.
not being clear on why you're doing it and what your success looks like. But absolutely, systems, structures, boundaries, being able to say no and not have regrets, right?
Yeah.
And say yes and mean it for sure.
You're right.
A lot of people, I think with social media, because everything seems to be out in the open, a lot of people are now more concerned about what will the people think instead of what gives you peace and makes you feel like it's purposeful, right?
Yeah.
and and so those are so key, I think, in this day and age, is really being in tune with yourself and your values and the things that you hold dear, because it's different for everybody. And for me, it's family for sure, right?
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
but a lot of people are not clear on that. They're just kind of going with the flow, not understanding why it's not working out or why do they feel the way they feel, for sure.
That's a big one. And what is it? I think Alex Formosi says in like 3 or 4 generations, most people aren't going to remember you like after we're gone, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And a little bit sobering. So like, take a chance on yourself. Focus on what really matters. Family, if it's for
Yeah.
like that's the same for me. And I love that. I think clarity is so crucial.
Mm-hmm.
Motivation comes and goes, right? There are days, I don't want to work out. I don't want to, take
For
these
sure.
sales or whatever. But the clarity of like why we're doing it, right?
Yeah.
That's important. And so how do people get clear on that goal? Because they could say they are clear on the goal, but a lot of times I don't think they're clear enough, right?
Mm-hmm. I think that could be simple answer, could be a very lengthy answer depending on the person's mindset, their heart, their journey. And the only reason I say that is because some people think they're doing something for a reason, but when they do the self work, they actually find out is not what they thought it was, because they got some unresolved childhood stuff. And I know that sounds crazy, but it happens more often than you think.
Sure.
I am very uh, I speak very blunt,
Yeah.
with a smile. and sometimes I have told clients, like, I think you should get a therapist. Like,
Yeah.
I'm here to help you move forward in your business, and I get life is happening, but I am not here to be a therapist for you, and I'm not taking away from your experience, but I just need you to know why you're here,
Yeah.
right? Because as a business strategist, I can give you the best strategy ever. But if you're not clear on why you're going after it, or you're not making your goals non-negotiable, it's just not going to happen, for
Yeah.
sure. And that's where that coaching piece comes in. We're making sure people have the mindset, which comes back to the self-work, right? The self-awareness. And so getting clear, I can give you like a cute framework, like I did for the Compass Clarity framework, on how to identify a business that would possibly work for you, right?
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, if you're not willing to take the time to get to know yourself well enough to say, this is what makes me feel warm and fuzzy, this is the thing that I enjoy beyond anything else, this is why I need to make $1 million, right? If you
Yeah.
don't know,
Yeah.
what are we doing?
Exactly.
And
It's just kind
so,
of like a superficial.
yeah, so clarity really comes from knowing yourself, and it comes from action.
Mm. Do you see a lot of people you work with dealing with things that are hindering their business careers, like specific type of
Mhm.
trauma or anything like that, or just in general things they have unresolved that is blocking their growth?
Absolutely. So all of my clients get a lengthy survey from me, right? And it's just not asking questions about their business or their understanding of business. It's asking questions about them and their personal development and their skill set around time management, productivity, procrastination, their ability to focus, about how they measure their goals, about how they get things done in their day. And so that way I know the type of person I'm dealing with, how serious they take their business, how well versed they are in business, things like that. And so, absolutely, I'll say my ideal client is very in line with who I am as a middle aged woman. And the hardest thing they have is showing up, right? There's a lot of imposter syndrome. There's a lot of fear of failing in public, right? Because on one side, I'm this great subject matter expert. I've done all these amazing things. I have all these amazing accolades. And how dare I start over and think that I could make it over here? And so it's getting out of their head enough to say, hey, I got a new day, a new life. So let's get this done and let's see what that looks like, which I think goes back to the importance of community, right? People to support you in those losses, but people also to support you in those wins. So for sure. Lots of mental clutter there.
Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of it starts with, really, everything. If you're wanting to lose weight, if you're wanting to get stronger, if you're wanting to start a business, be a better father, be a better mother, we all have to deal with our own things, right? We got to figure out what's causing us not to be where we want to be or not taking the action that we should be, and overcome those. So I think that's this has been a great conversation, just like from the processes, from the mental block, it's clear. For you, like you said, you've done a lot. You've made a positive impact. You're doing a lot still. At the end of the day, you don't want people just to know you as someone who's just super busy, right? What do you want people to say about you? How you led?
I think more than anything, if I had to be known as anything, maybe a servant leader. Like I was kind, right? Kind is not the same as nice. I'm not a nice person, for sure, but I'm very kind, right? Yep. And so my nonprofit is still in business, still thriving. I love serving people. I love helping people. I love inspiring people. I love leading people. Like, you don't have to owe me anything. You can't do anything for me. I just want to pay it forward. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so for the people that have had time to experience me, I want them to walk away with like, oh, she was pretty cool. She was, I don't want to say a nice woman, but she was kind. Sometimes even with my clients and my nonprofit, it's like, let me give it to you how it is, right? But I'm a person of honesty and integrity for sure.
That's awesome.
Definitely a servant. Yeah.
I love that, and I think that's a great legacy to want to leave, and for people to know you for that reason. And again, really, really awesome. Where can people, if people want to learn from you and maybe get your help, what's the best place for them to connect with you at?
I have a website, of course, chanda-co.com. And then social media is Chanda2_CO. So would love to connect.
Yeah. Everyone listen, make sure you at least go check out what she's got out there, connect with her. If it resonates with you and you want, continue to learn from her, a lot of knowledge and a lot of positive stuff she's putting out there. So again, Chanda, thank you so much for being on the Elevate Media podcast today.
Thanks for having me. This has been a great conversation. Thanks, for sure.
And if you're listening to this and you're not following the show yet, make sure you do. And then make sure you share this with someone who's out there trying to build, a business, trying to change their family's outcome in life. They can learn from this, and we can do more together by sharing it. So we appreciate everyone listening. And until next time, continue to go out there, elevate your life, elevate your brand, and we'll talk to you again soon.